Resources. Leadership isn't simply a matter of stepping into the driver's seat, grabbing the steering wheel, pressing the accelerator, and heading off. Leadership also involves recruiting the resources that fuel the trip. Leaders who are good at guiding already funded, already made things can do well enough. Yet leaders who can raise funds, acquire talent, and amass even greater resources, whether for a new organization or an old and well-developed organization, add an extra dimension to their leadership. If you truly want to succeed at leadership, don't just see how well you can do with what you already have at hand. Instead, examine your organization for the additional resources that it could use, and then look around to see what additional resources you can acquire and apply for your organization's benefit. Make resource acquisition a significant part of your leadership skills and plans. Without adequate resources, your leadership efforts will be like blowing into the wind. Finances. Organizational finance or fundraising is one way to look at resource acquisition. Money can acquire the facilities, pay the personnel, purchase the equipment and supplies, and conduct the programs and operations necessary to an organization's pursuit of its mission. Money isn't the organization's direct need. Money simply represents the personnel, facilities, supplies, or other things the organization needs for programs, functions, and operations. Finance and fundraising isn't necessarily a leader's favorite subject. Some leaders rue having to deal with money issues, preferring to deal with the organization's personnel, program, operations, facilities, and even marketing and communications issues, while pursuing their vision for the organization's success. But finance and fundraising can be the lifeblood of an organization. If the money isn't flowing through the organization in the quantity and with the regularity that the organization requires, things break down quickly. When an organization has a need, and organizations can have many needs, money may be the first thing about which leaders think. Money isn't the solution to every organizational issue, but money can solve a lot of issues. Sector. The sector in which you lead, whether business, nonprofit, or government, determines the available sources for your organization's finances. Business organizations finance their operations one way, while nonprofit organizations finance their programs another way, and government agencies finance their services yet another way. Your plan for acquiring resources, thus first, depends on the sector in which your organization participates. Nonprofit leaders must generally approach fundraising in a vastly different way from business leaders, although some of the internal financial management concepts and strategies may be similar. Nonprofit leaders can certainly learn from business strategies. Resource acquisition and financial management for government agency leaders is also vastly different from resource acquisition for business or nonprofit leaders, although once again, some of the financial management strategies may be similar. If you have a facility with finances in any sector, your facility is likely to translate well to another sector. Just recognize the stark differences in financial sources. Business. Business organizations must have adequate financial resources to remain competitive in their field. Business organizations finance their activities primarily through owner investment, borrowing, and revenue from operations. Owners generally invest initial capital to start a business. Starting a business without owner capital is hard. Owners must generally kick in something, cash included. Successful businesses may operate at a loss for weeks, months, and even years before returning handsome profits to their investors. Owners, though, may also periodically provide additional capital when the business calls, whether to get the organization through an economic downturn or for expansion or other needs. Borrowing may be an alternative, although borrowing adds operating expense and brings risk. A line of credit may smooth the ebbs and flows of short-term cash needs, but beware significant borrowing other than for long-term capital investments such as facilities. Revenue from operations is, of course, the best source of new finances to meet business needs. Business owners hope that operations return handsome profits, not just for their pockets, but also to meet business plans and needs. But that may be exactly your conundrum as a leader, that you need finances to make money. Consider all three financial sources, investment, borrowing, and profit, to meet your organization's resource needs. Nonprofit. Nonprofit organizations must have adequate financial resources to carry out their charitable mission. Nonprofit organizations finance their activities somewhat differently than business organizations. Nonprofits have no owners to make investments. The public is a charitable nonprofit organization's putative owner. The charitable nonprofit's board governs the organization for public benefit. Charitable nonprofits raise funds from public contributions, private foundation grants, and government grants. Like businesses, nonprofits can also borrow money to meet their financial needs. And like businesses, nonprofits can also earn net revenue, what a business would call profit, to reinvest or return to owners. but what the nonprofit must treat instead as funds to hold in public trust and reinvest. Nonprofits may, like businesses, earn revenue through sales of goods and services, although a tax-exempt charitable nonprofit must not operate in a commercial manner, competing with business concerns. Instead, charitable nonprofits sell subsidized goods and services, where competitive markets do not meet disadvantaged patron needs. When seeking additional resources for the nonprofit organization you lead, look to all of the above potential sources. You need the right mix of grants, contributions, and revenue. Government. Government agencies must have adequate resources to fulfill their public mission. If you are leading a government agency, you know that agencies too have resource needs. Tax revenue, license and user fees, and revenue from sales of goods and services compose the financial mix for most government agencies. Because government agencies do not generally operate in competitive environments, market share won't drive your resource needs. Instead, you will measure your resource needs by the extent to which your agency is able to fulfill its public mission. But you may have little influence over your financial resources to acquire additional resources to pursue your agency's mission. Legislative bodies generally set agency budgets, as the executive authority recommends and requests. To increase your tax revenue share, you may most need the confidence of your executive official, whether a mayor, county administrator, or governor, and the confidence of the council, commission, or other legislative body, that your agency is serving efficiently and effectively, but hampered by resource inadequacies. You must build your case to properly influence the discernment, vote, or recommendation of your governing public officials. Unit. You may, alternatively, lead a unit, department, or team within a business or nonprofit organization or government agency for which you need additional resources. Acquiring additional financial resources for a unit, department, or team you lead differs from acquiring resources as an organization leader. A team leader generally raises additional resources not from outside the organization, but instead internally. Units, departments, and teams may generate some of their own revenue, and some of the revenue they generate may remain at the disposal of the unit, department, or team. You might, in other words, have a limited opportunity to raise your own financial resources out of your own unit's increased revenue. But generally, unit revenue goes to the organization, out of which the organization funds all programs and operations. To acquire additional resources for your unit or team thus generally requires advocating effectively within your organization's budget process. You need to influence the decision of your organization's executive director and the director's finance team. Make your internal case based on your unit's efficiency, criticality, priority, and opportunity to enhance the overall organization's performance. Your ability to advocate effectively within your organization for your team's additional resources may be critical to the success of your leadership. Efficiency. The efficiency of your organization or team is a significant factor in your resource plan and needs. While increasing your organization or team resources may be your obvious need, you may have the opportunity to use your resources more wisely and efficiently. Indeed, to acquire more resources, whether from owners, donors, lenders, or an executive director and finance team, you may have to demonstrate that you are using your current resources efficiently and effectively. Waste won't get you more resources. Waste instead depletes the resources you currently have while showing your funders that you not only deserve no more, but instead deserve even less. Make every reasonable effort to use your current resources well. Consider reallocating your current resources from one need or task to another until you reach the optimal use of whatever you have. Look for opportunities to reduce expenses, share resources with other units, teams, or departments, or otherwise increase your efficiency. You may be able to satisfy your additional resource needs internally simply by increasing efficiency. But even if not, efficient and effective leadership proves the value of your unit or organization and thus garners greater resources. Plan. You should develop a plan for acquiring the additional financial resources that your team or organization needs. Your plan should include information on how you are currently maximizing use of your current resources, including any recent efforts you've made to improve efficiency. Your plan should also include specific information on how you would use additional resources and how your use of those additional resources would increase the performance, value, and return of your team or organization. That information should include measurable projections of the increased performance you expect, showing your willingness to be accountable for the additional resources your team or organization acquires. Your plan should also demonstrate that you have explored and exhausted alternatives to acquiring additional resources.